heart of America, I'm Steve Gruber, ready to deliver an inclusive and diverse discussion on the most important topics of the day, giving you better analysis and insight than, well, anyone else. Shining a spotlight on the cockroaches of the swamp, delivering truth and justice just when hope you thought was starting to fade. It's not. Here are three big things you need to know to start your day today. Number one, a dad in Minnesota beat another man to death, a convicted sex offender, with a moose antler after he claims his daughter was being stalked. That's one way to get it done. Number two, Hillary Clinton is back like a bad penny, and she is beating the drums of war again, like a neocon, promoting the war in Russia. And number three, Silicon Valley Bank was opened Monday under new ownership after it failed last week. The bank was heavily involved in the tech industry and startups, a lot of woke investments. The bank had $40 billion liquidated by investors in about 2 hours last Thursday after Peter Thiel made a comment on a conference call telling everyone that their money should be taken out of the bank because the bank was teetering on failure. Yeah, that's what happened. And if this was just one bank on the brink, it would be a thing. But then a second major bank, Signature, failed in New York. It was heavily involved in cryptocurrency. Regulators took over on Sunday. And you may think things are okay now, but I would not bet on it. My source is telling me we could see more regional banks and specialty banks getting crushed. This process could be the opening act. It will almost certainly chase money into the 4 or 5 biggest banks in the country, meaning more bigger banks, because you love big banks, don't you? Are we on the verge of nationalizing the banking system in America? Maybe. Some people are saying that is exactly what's coming, whether intentional or accidental. But let me be crystal clear. This is a very unpredictable time, and it could mean more banks, more upheaval, and more tough days ahead. The biggest takeaway is this. Despite all the happy talk from the Biden administration, inflation is still out of control, and that will mean more big interest rate hikes by the Fed. You see, and when they're holding stocks and bonds that are of little value, these banks get in trouble. The bond rate, killing them. What will it mean for the stock market? Well, that's not clear yet either, but it has remained in a very tight range. And that usually means a sharp break up or down. And if the market thinks the banking issues are under control, that could be up. However, the market could also break the other way, and it could be severe. So we'll keep that in mind. Of course, Joe Biden blames the bank failures this past week on Donald Trump. Of course he does, who left office more than 2 years ago because he cannot take responsibility for anything. For anything. Listen to this.
We must get the full accounting of what happened and why those responsible can be held accountable. In my administration, no one is above the law. And finally, we must reduce the risk of this happening again. During the Obama-Biden administration, we put in place tough requirements on banks like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, including the Dodd-Frank law to make sure that the crisis we saw in 2008 would not happen again. Unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements. I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again.
Yeah. The problem is, Joey, it's the inflation that's killing these banks. You see, when the bond rates are at 0.1% or 0.2% or 0.3%, and then they go to 4%, 4.5%, 5%, they can't give those bonds away. And when they're locked in for 3, 4, 5 years, it means they're in real financial trouble. The foundational failure of the Silicon Valley Bank can likely be tied to its aggressive woke investment policies too, and its ESG approach, but it depends on who you ask as to whether or not it had a big impact, but it probably did. SVB was openly woke, and then, of course, it was openly broke. And no matter what they are saying, you, my friends, are getting the bill. They can say, there's no bailout. There's no bailout. There's no bailout. Doesn't matter what they say. You are getting the bill. Listen.
I think there's a big disparity between the investments in Black-led companies than other companies.
We want to help close the Latino wealth gap. I want to be able to help them build generational wealth. I love access to innovation because of what it stands for.
Giving access to opportunities such as training, such as financing, introductions that people would not necessarily get.
This is part of an initiative that everyone is committed to, from the CEO down.
It's meaningful work that has to be done.
My name is Beatriz Acevedo.
I'm Dave Salvon, and I'm happy to be a part of Access to Innovation.
Well, there you have it. SVB working with black startups and Latinx, whatever that means. Even Hispanics don't know what that means. They hate that, in fact. But there it is. If they tell you it was not a woke bank, well, there it is. Joe Biden will be asking for more bank regulations, more guardrails, as he puts it. But it was his administration that put us here. He didn't inherit inflation. He created it. He created this banking mess. But listen.
Requirements. I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again, and to protect American jobs and small businesses. Look, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed. On top of all of it, let's also take a look at a moment to put the situation in a broader context. We've made strong economic progress in the past 2 years. We've created more than 12 million new jobs, more jobs in 2 years than any president has ever created in a single 4-year term.
He is so full of it. Oh, we created jobs. No, all you did, we have less people working today. Less people working in America today than we did January 2020. You didn't create doodly squat, pal. First of all, government doesn't create jobs. Get out of the way, jobs will be created by the private sector. Get the hell out of the way, jobs are created in the private sector. This idea, we created jobs, you didn't do doodly squat. You can destroy jobs. You can move government out of the way, but the fact of the matter is, this inflation created by you, Joe Biden, setting us on a path to $50 trillion in debt. That's what put these banks at risk. That's what put these banks into receivership. Because the bonds that they were holding weren't worth anything. $40 billion came out in about 2 hours last Thursday. After Peter Thiel made that comment on a conference call, about $40 billion was liquidated by the customers of that bank. And, it used to be you had to go to the bank to do it. Now, of course, it's all done by computer. And they couldn't find a way to put the brakes on. So, all the money came out. But again, the president of that bank sat there in the last few days before this collapse, handing out bonuses to his employees, and I'm going to guess to himself as well. Passing around money. And then the government comes in, nobody will lose their deposits. Nobody's going to lose their deposits. Well, you can call that whatever you want. I still call that a bailout. I mean, from where I come from, words mean something. How about you? If 97% of the depositors are over the $250,000 limit, and they're covered anyway, that's a bailout. And you'll get the bill. More on this after the break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Good to have you here.